Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am going to do a review today and a demo for you guys on the Makeup Forever Reboot foundation. I actually saw this foundation on Luster Lux's channel. She is Katie Luster Lux. She used to be Luster Lux, but now she's Katie. So if you don't know who she is, I'll go ahead and link her channel down below. But I saw her using this on her channel. She didn't do like an all-day wear test or a review of it or anything. She had actually gone to an event where they actually used this foundation, and she said that there was a makeup artist from Makeup Forever and that he was using this foundation on someone. I can't remember who it was, and she learned some techniques from that makeup artist. And so when I was watching her video, I got some inspiration from it, and I purchased a couple of the products that she was using, but this was one of the products. And I was really intrigued by it because Makeup Forever really hasn't come out with a new foundation here lately. I know they came out with their foundation powder, which I absolutely love, but they hadn't come out with the liquid foundation. So I went ahead and purchased this one. It is called the Makeup Forever Reboot Foundation. The foundation is 1 fluid ounces. It also retails for $39, and I purchased mine at Sephora. I got the shade Y365. It wasn't really hard to find my shade. I went into Sephora, I tested a few out, and this is the shade that I actually ended up with. Now today I am wearing the foundation on my skin. I did do an all-day wear test with this foundation, and I will get into those details here in a bit. But what I want to do is go over really quickly the details of the foundation that are on the Sephora website. So it says, a skin revitalizing foundation that adds a radiant satin finish while hydrating, smoothing, and firming the skin for up to 24 hours. It is said to be light coverage. It is a satin finish. The formulation is liquid. It says it's for normal and dry skin types. The highlighted ingredients are ginseng, which supports natural collagen, Camellia japonica, which helps to support skin's natural glow, mondo grass, which helps to support the skin's protective barrier. And it says what else you need to know. This foundation is ideal for normal to dry skin types and nurtures tired looking skin over time by reducing the appearance of wrinkles and increasing hydration for up to 24 hours. After using, skin will appear plumper and smoother, while a radiant satin finish leaves the complexion looking flawless. And they have some clinical results here, which sometimes I don't really like the way they do these clinical results, because like here they use like 31 subjects. You can't really get a good study with just 31 subjects. So I'm not going to go over those, but I did want to give you the details that were on this Sephora website. And it says here on the box that it brightens, smooths, firms, hydrates, and evens out the skin tone. Now this doesn't have any claims that are geared towards the longevity of the foundation. It doesn't promise that it's going to last all day. So that's one thing that I was looking at when I bought the foundation. I thought it was going to be one of those foundations that was going to pretty much last all day, but I didn't see anything about that. And even though I didn't, I still bought the foundation because I wanted to try it. So I will say, when I saw Katie use this foundation, it looked absolutely beautiful on her skin. Her skin looked really brightening. It looked illuminating. It was just really beautiful. So that's another reason why I wanted to try it, because it looks so good on her. I was hoping that it was going to work for me. So this is the actual packaging of the foundation. It is a glass bottle, which comes with a black plastic cap. And then it also has a pump, which I really love, but it pumps out just enough foundation. I will show you what the foundation looks like. It is a very runny foundation. As you can see, it's running down my hand, so it's very liquidy. So it goes on really lightly. It doesn't feel heavy on the skin at all. So let's go ahead and go into the demo really quickly so you guys can see how this foundation went on my skin. that you guys have seen the demo, you saw that I used a brush to apply the foundation. I did try to use a sponge, but with the sponge, it actually soaked up a lot of the product. So I went in with the brush as my second tool, and I really loved it with the brush. Now on Katie's channel, she does use a kabuki brush, and she blends the foundation actually into her skin just like I did. And that was the way the makeup artist actually recommended using the product. So I went ahead and used the Sonia Kashuk Flat Top Kabuki. This is not as dense as my other Sonia Kashuk Kabuki brush. This is a little less dense. So I really liked it for that. I went in and I kind of just blended it into the skin as you saw, and it did such a good job of applying that foundation and giving it a little bit more coverage. So I did want to mention that about the tool I used. I just feel like the brush was best for applying this foundation. And I also want to mention that when I put this foundation on, it was very wet on my skin. As you guys saw in the video, it looked really wet on the skin, very glowy, very illuminating, and it did stay that way for a few minutes. I actually let this dry on my skin. Now it didn't dry 100%, it was still a little tacky in areas, but for the most part it did dry enough to where I could place powder on it. So I just wanted to give you that specific information that it is wet going on the skin, and that I would wait a few minutes before putting powder on so that you can allow that foundation to dry a little bit. But once I put the powder on, it looked absolutely beautiful. Now today I have the Hourglass powder on, which is the Hourglass Veil powder, but I did use my Chanel powder with it. I used my YSL powder with it, and it worked well with all of those powders. Now as far as the finish, it wasn't really a satin finish to me. It felt like a really dewy, illuminating finish. To me, it wasn't satin at all. I think that with the powder, yes, it looks very satin-like, but initially the finish is more dewy. So if you're not gonna set this, you're gonna have a very dewy foundation on your skin. It's not gonna be satin-like at all. Another thing was that I wore this foundation for over 7 hours, almost 8 hours, and the foundation did not budge. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't break up around my pore area. It didn't get oily. It just worked really well for my skin. Now I did have one little minor issue, and it wasn't that big of a deal to be honest, but right here where my laugh lines are, it did crease just a tiny bit, but not enough to where I couldn't just take my finger and kind of press into there and it'd be gone. So that wasn't a really big issue for me, but I did want to mention that because some of you may not want it to crease at all. But unfortunately with my skin, I do have some laugh lines here, and it did crease just a tiny bit, but nothing that I'm too worried about. So besides that, it wore beautifully. Actually, when I was testing this foundation, I will say that I could not stop looking at my skin because I felt like my skin looked so smooth, and it didn't look like I had a lot of makeup on. It looked very natural, and it looked vibrant. I felt like it had more of that like wide awake look where your skin just looks plump and it looks smooth, and it just looked really healthy. I do want to mention a few more things. I do want to mention that I used probably about 2.5 pumps for my entire face, and that's because I like full coverage. Now I could not get a full coverage with this foundation, but I did get a medium coverage, and that was still good for me. I do use Tarte Shape Tape to cover up imperfections, and that worked well with the foundation. So I didn't get a full coverage, but I did get a good medium coverage. Another thing I want to mention is the primer that I used. I did use the Milk Hydro Primer. I'm getting back into this primer, so I used this one, and I also used the e.l.f. Matte Putty Primer for my T-zone, and I also used the Revlon Pore Reducing Primer for my T-zone on another day. So all of those primers worked really well with this foundation, and I suggest you use a primer that works for your skin type. And speaking of skin type, I do have normal on the perimeter and oily on my T-zone. I will say that I disagree with this being for normal to dry skin tones, because I really feel like my T-zone did not get oily at all with this foundation. So I feel like if you're not excessively oily and you have an oil issue that's kind of moderate, then I think you can use this foundation. But I always suggest that you go out and get a sample first before you buy it, because then you have the issue of having to return it. Most of the time I do buy the full bottle only because I'm doing a review for you guys and I want y'all to see the product itself and also the packaging. But either way, I would suggest that you get a sample, get it in your shade, and try it before you actually purchase the entire bottle. So I really love this foundation. I think Makeup Forever did an excellent job of creating this foundation and bringing something back out on the market that people are gonna love. So I'm really glad that I picked it up. I'm so glad I saw it on Katie's channel, and I'm not regretting it at all. It's so good. All right, guys, so that's it for my review and demo of the Makeup Forever Reboot Foundation. I hope you guys liked this review. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.